Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better. He gets better and Oh, man, woman, and child, he just turned this stadium inside out.
It's always so awkward whenever we start this because it's like, when do we start? When do you start?
That's why I told you. I'm like,
no, I know.
I don't even know what you want to talk about, man. So you go ahead and fire this one off.
I said to start with the Frozone bullshit.
Do it.
No,
where's my super suit?
Come on. No, if you go on 24/7 and you look at Nebraska's 2024 recruits, you can find Frozone on there. I guess that's all I'll say.
Davon Hall, right?
Yeah.
WS?
Yeah. No, don't say the name. Just go on there.
Do you know who it is? You go out there and find Samuel L. Jackson. He is in that recruiting class.
God, I wish.
That's who does that
I know.
voice. Frozone, right? That's his name?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't do
I love that you
cartoon
said
movies.
Mr. Freeze from The Incredibles.
I don't fucking know.
Yes, Arnold is in that one.
I don't do cartoon movies. I fall asleep through all of them. I don't care.
Do you imagine Arnold doing the voice of that guy?
I think it'd be
funny.
fantastic.
Where's my super suit?
We haven't done a show in so long, and this is how we're starting.
Well, it's
Welcome
better.
back, boys and
Better
girls.
than sit there in silence. We're fucking off.
I know.
Yeah, no shit. No shit.
So what are we doing? We're doing poll questions today. Is that what this is?
So the Athletic a couple weeks ago had a survey that went out to anybody that's subscribed to the Athletic. You got this survey that was talking about college football and basically what your thoughts are on the upcoming season and also college football as a whole. I mean, for instance, the very first question was, what is your attitude towards the future of college football? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is very concerned, 10 is very excited. So it's, some of the questions as we go through some of these will be specifically for this year. Some of them are more long-term and whatever else. So I thought it'd be, considering we have 42 days, 6 weeks from today of our recording, Nebraska will be playing Minnesota. We will be up there.
So fucking exciting.
We should have brought more sets of underwear.
I'm glad you have a towel over there. Jesus Christ. But we got the college football season not coming fast enough, but coming.
Stop it.
Sometimes it's not about how fast you come, man.
Just fucking stop it.
Anyway, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very excited, what is your attitude towards the future of college football?
10.
For the future.
Is there an 11?
Well, can you...
Yeah, I'm saying 10 for two reasons. I think I really like the direction that NIL is going.
Okay.
I think it's great for these players. And I think it's going to cause a lot more parity in college, especially as more teams get a better pool of money that they can provide. You're going to start seeing more talent kind of even out. And then the new playoff system, I think, is going to be freaking sweet.
Some of the things that you bring up are questions that will be coming up. So.
Well, joke's on you. I write for The Athletic.
Don't put Mitch Sherman out of a job. No, I'm kind of with Matt on that. I'm very excited to see what conference realignment looks like in like 2 or 3 seasons.
Again, another question that will be coming up.
Well, that's the future, though.
Joke's on you, BJ.
When you look at college football, those are the big talking points. Because you also, I think it kind of depends on who you're a fan of, too. Because there's a lot of schools out there that if you're a lifelong, you're a lifelong USC fan, you might not be very happy that the majority of conference games now are going to be played 3/4 of the way across the country. Yeah. You might not be very happy now that you're losing out on, I remember when we left the Big 12, there were a bunch of teams that were like, what the fuck? We're not playing Oklahoma every year now? We're not playing Colorado all the time anymore? Like,
we don't have the easy road trips to Kansas State, and Iowa State.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of the things we're used to as a fan base. It doesn't mean that it was bad for us. I still think it was a positive move, even though we've been in the doghouse since.
Yes.
But those things you don't know until down the road. I think it's exciting from a standpoint of if you're a Big Ten or an SEC school or going to be a Big Ten or SEC school, that's exciting. The future looks bright. If you're one of if you're one of the cast-offs, you don't know what the future looks like. And I would be sitting there like, as a dad, I would be sitting there talking to my son about being a fan of, I don't even know, like a Kansas State, not knowing if they're going to go someplace that's going to be relevant. Like, hey, yeah, we might be basically rooting for a D2 school here in 5 years.
So before I answer, I'll go off what you just said. Let's say you're an Oregon fan. You kind of don't know. I mean,
you have no idea who to even look at.
So if you were an Oregon fan, would you answer this question, your attitude towards the future of college football, differently? Or being a Nebraska fan, being one of the big boys in a big boy conference, the Big Ten or the SEC, does that help shape your thoughts on the attitude, your attitude?
Like I said, if you're one of those outcasts,
that's one of the things with this question. It went out nationally, so it's not just going to be Big Ten and SEC people answering these questions. But
some of those teams are on the outside; their fans don't see it that way because nobody wants to feel like they're going to be irrelevant.
But I think if you're Oregon,
maybe they don't see that writing on the wall.
Yeah,
I think if you're Oregon or a Washington fan, you're probably pretty okay. You're probably pretty happy because you're going to be moving into a better situation. Mm-hmm. If you're Colorado, if you're Arizona State,
what about a North Carolina State fan?
A North Carolina State
with the
fan?
questions of the ACC.
Yeah, who knows?
Because Clemson, Miami, Florida State, all the big North Carolina, they're good. They're going to be okay.
They're going to wind up somewhere, just like Oregon and Washington.
Exactly. If you're North Carolina State, if you're, hell, even like a Virginia Tech.
I heard some rumblings about Cal.
I hear rumblings about Cal
getting rid of football.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean.
Cal's going the way that UNO.
Those fans would be saying one across the board on this question.
Yeah. Honestly, my attitude towards the future of college football, I wouldn't put it up that high. I would probably put it at a 6 because I actually do have a lot of questions about NIL. I don't know. One of my biggest things about college football right now is that there is not basically, for lack of a better word, there's not a commissioner. Each conference is in it for itself.
And there needs to be somebody at the top regulating what's going on.
There won't be. That's one of the problems.
And the most recent body that we've really looked at to do that for the last 30-ish years, the NCAA,
shitting their pants,
has been atrocious. Well, for at least the last decade.
But the NCAA has also not ran FBS college football for a long time. So
that's what I mean, though. Really, but they've still been, they've been the ones that we've looked to for the most part. And we know this, but a lot of casual fans just think, oh, no, the NCAA runs college sports. Yeah. That's just the way it works. And they've been atrocious at everything that they've done for at least the last decade, probably close to 2. And, I mean, you look at...
They might make the legislative rules, but they don't run college football.
Do you guys see the chance of a third-party entity coming in just to run the NIL?
Not until the Big Ten and the SEC agree that they are now big boy football, and they appoint someone to basically head up those two, to kind of try and bring fairness between the two major powerhouse conferences.
I agree with the thought of that, but that would require the Big Ten and the SEC to give up power. And I just don't know that they ever would.
I don't think it's going to be a give up power from a conference standpoint, but it's going to be a give up power from a standpoint of there's just some administrative shit that has to be taken care of. You're not going to take away everything. I'm saying just the administrative stuff by like, cross conference scheduling and doing things like that.
I don't trust the SEC and the Big Ten to say we can't handle that ourselves. I want that to happen. I don't trust that they actually will say it.
Well, I would assume that governing body would probably be made up of people coming from both conferences.
I would hope so.
As more of like a board.
And that, in similar ways to how the NFL protects its players when they're first starting to get money, or in ways that it's not very good at it, but how we protect like child stars. We need rules in place simply just so that these players aren't out here getting $100,000 and going and blowing it on a nice car and wrapping it around a pole. Like we need somebody. We need some sort of body to be like, okay, this is what's allowed to you. Here's some things that we need from you as a player. Not even from the schools themselves, but for the players to have some guidance.
Well, and I don't want this conversation to go down the political spectrum, but I did see today that or today or yesterday, there is actually some stuff going across some politicians about NIL, about making more of a national rule rather than state rule, which is going on right now.
That's interesting.
That's basically what NIL is. It's state by state, whatever their rules are.
When I said third-party governing body, I didn't mean the government.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying there does have to be a national standard.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of what you're trying to say, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there has to be more of a national standard than a regional standard. That's why I say I don't trust the SEC or the Big Ten to say, we'll let somebody else do this, because then that's them saying we can't do it better.
Yeah.
And all of these guys have way too big of egos to say any of that.
Well, and I think, what you said kind of makes sense. An equal party board could get the job done.
I hope so.
I don't think it needs to be bigger than that, because there's so much from the administration standpoint that the conferences themselves will do, and they can just agree that, these are the rules we're going to abide by back and forth. But you put together a committee or a board between the two conferences that includes, the two commissioners of the conferences, and then probably, some elected 2 or 3 representatives from different schools, whether they be ADs or chancellors, and you bring them in. Like,
it could even be a private committee.
I could see a Trev Alberts joining a type of a board like that, where it's more of a every year, all the joined schools, they vote on it, and they put up 3 or 4 from each conference, and that's your delegation. And they go and they agree on the different rules that they're going to abide by, and they help set the schedule. And outside of that, you let the conferences continue doing what they're doing.
Like I said, I think one of the biggest examples of what I'm saying is also, as far as they can't agree on shit, is we can't even get conferences to agree on how many conference games you should play. I mean, we've got...
That's one of those things you're going to have to agree on. When it becomes 2 conferences, you're going to have to. We can't even
get them to agree that. How are we supposed to get them to agree on what NIL is, or the transfer portal, or any of these other scheduling rules or anything? Well, how many conference games you play is very minimal. The other stuff is huge. You can't even get them to agree on the minimal stuff. I just don't know.
I completely agree with you. And unfortunately, it's probably going to take something happening.
Yeah.
Before we really see a lot of rules change.
So what you're gonna see is strength of schedule coming way more into play for those top 12 spots.
Maybe.
And when a big name gets left off from the SEC because they don't play enough hard games, then you're going to see a giant shift in the way that that's looked at, because it's like, oh, you're going to cry about getting left off, but you didn't play a hard enough schedule to warrant you being put in. So you decide.
That's what everybody said about the 4-team schedule, the 4-team playoff. As soon as
but then there was only 4 teams that were good every year.
But as soon as a big boy team is left out, then
December madness.
Everybody's going to be like, ooh, we got to get bigger. All that stuff.
What it really led to
December
was
madness.
Some corrupted crap happening and seeing some BS go down where they just decided that they were putting other teams in, even though they didn't warrant getting in.
Yeah. So of the responses that they got on this, 53.1% of respondents chose an answer between 7 and 10.
That doesn't shock.
So
actually, 53 feels a little low, but some of the points you brought up make a lot of sense.
I mean, that
doesn't. Again, how many teams are on the outside looking in?
Over 50% of these responders are very excited about the future. Yeah. That's 7 to 10. That
actually surprises me based on the way that we're talking about just the conference realignment stuff. Think about how you're talking about maybe 46 teams, 48 teams total that are excited about the potential of a 2-conference juggernaut. And the rest of college football, which is 132 teams,
133 this year,
133 teams. The rest of those teams are on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, from my own personal sample of the 3 of us, we were almost at 100% between 7 and 10. Jay was off by 1.
I was at 6, yeah.
So we're also all fans of one of those big...
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? The rest of them can fuck off. Be better.
So question number 2 goes into some of our conversation that we've had. What do you think is the biggest issue facing college football? And here are the options. Conference realignment, managing name, image, and likeness, managing rosters / transfer portal, lack of parity, or other. And literally 3 of those things that we brought up on this list are what we brought up already. As far as parity, managing name, image, and likeness, conference realignment. So what do you think is the biggest issue facing college football? It could be one of those four or other.
I don't think you can limit it to just one of those four or other.
Okay, so what would you put at number one if you were ranking those?
I'd say 1A and 1B would have to be the transfer portal stuff with parity. Because I think the transfer portal, it allows for more parity because you're seeing these Alabamas, the Georgias, they can't necessarily go out there and hoard all the 5-star quarterbacks.
I love it.
All of that creates parity, right?
Not just the 5-star quarterbacks, but some defensive linemen or outside linebackers that we might get, or big time tight ends that they already have, and then that we might get. Stuff like that.
Stuff like that, and so that's why I say you can't really just limit those two separately because I think they kind of go hand in hand.
You know what I love the most about that is that you got players coming, like the best players are going to be on the field now on Saturdays.
Well, and that's the positive side of the transfer portal. The negative side of the transfer portal
or
is...
at least the best rated players.
Yeah. The negative side of the transfer portal is you're almost eliminating the aspects of college football that have made college football so endearing from a standpoint of school pride, and it's not about the name on the back, it's about the name on the front. Those types of things that are really pretty much gone in professional sports that have remained in college sports until very, very recently. And it's only going to get worse when players are transferring every other year or every year, and kids are growing up not fit. I thought it was weird the first time I heard somebody say, well, I'm not a Cleveland Cavaliers fan. I'm a LeBron fan. Mm-hmm. So wherever LeBron's playing, I'm a fan. I'm a KD fan. I don't care how many teams he plays for. I just follow KD. Like, that's a lot of people now. I think that's weird. Like, that's foreign to me, but that's because I grew up fans of teams. That's the fantasy sports world. Fantasy has a lot to do with that too. But that's been, for the most part, that's been a professional sports thing. I think you're seeing right now the Raiola thing is a huge thing right there. Like, there's kids right now that got excited about articles and things that they saw of Raiola that they followed him to Georgia, and they're going to be fans of him playing at Georgia as long as he's there. And if he leaves, they're going to be fans of him going wherever else he goes.
Can I ask a follow-up question, though? Do you think that's a bad thing?
That's what I said, though. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's getting rid of something that has been an endearing part of college sports as compared to professional sports. It's just taking that next step towards being another level of professional sports.
It's that whole name on the front of the jersey, name on the back of the jersey stuff aspect of college sports. That's what drew me to college sports. Now, yes, I do believe
pride. You play for the glory.
I agree
of
with
your
you
team.
that it has been going away for quite some time. It's with the name, image, and likeness with the transfer portal. It's going away even further. But I'm already so entrenched that I'm not going anywhere.
Well,
but at the same time,
just
for new fans, I get that would be a factor.
I'm not necessarily a new fan, but I've never kid myself about the fact that college sports, just like professional sports, it's a business.
Yeah.
It's not college
and it's becoming
and then
more
people
and more
playing
of a business.
games.
Yeah.
It's college sports are their own thing. They're the money maker. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited that players are getting paid now. I have a hard time seeing it as a negative thing.
It's really just how you look at it.
I hear what you guys are talking about for sure.
It could be a negative. It could be a positive. It's just about how you look at the sport. There's a lot of, and it's really a generational thing because there's a lot of people that are in the, we'd call them the grandparents or great grandparents generation right now that they only care about college sports. They hate professional sports because it's about the name on the back of the jersey. Yeah. And it's because
That's my dad.
Yeah, and the way that
he doesn't
college
care
is
about
going
pro
right
sports
now,
because he thinks it's too me.
Yeah, and that's the sad part for the older generation that have built Memorial Stadium, that have put the money in the pockets of everybody down in Lincoln, that has grown this giant conglomerate of an athletic department into what it is, and now they're kowtowing towards what makes it popular for the young generation. That's they didn't build it for what it is.
I got you.
And so I'm not saying it's wrong or right because
it's a concern though.
You're basically just shifting your fan base is what you're doing, and you're basically saying, hey, the olds are only going to be here for so much longer. We've got to adapt and adjust, and that's what they're doing.
The olds.
The elders.
Every time he says it, I feel a little offended because
I'm talking like 60
one of
plus.
the olds.
I gotta watch out when I say it. I'm talking like 60 plus.
That's really offensive to some 60-year-olds, man.
no, but I mean,
That's some
like,
pretty damn young 60-year-olds, man.
the thing is, you can bring up these concerns, and that doesn't mean that you're going away from it. Like, I mean, hell, I asked the very first question. You guys were like 9s, 10s. And me sitting over here with who, of the three of us at least, watches more college football than you two combined.
Especially as one of the old.
Yeah.
You watch more college football than anyone that I've ever met.
Well, that's...
You watch more college football. You watch more college football probably this week than a normal casual Husker fan watches for a whole season.
But I mean, I said a 6. I'm not going anywhere, but I have these concerns. Like, just because I put that first question at a 6 doesn't mean, like, I'm turning games off.
No.
I'm still not going to bed on Saturdays until the last game's over.
Well, and as one of the youngs, this is we're gonna stick with this.
It doesn't work like that. Youngs doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's just the old.
One of the averages. Just shut up. I'm more of a kid who's sitting in a candy store and just wants what's in front of him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited for the future, even though I love looking at the past. They're just.
So what do you think is the biggest issue facing college football of those options?
I think regulating the NIL probably for myself, just because it can get money makes things weird, dude, and it can get so out of hand.
And because there's no real rules on it right now.
That's what makes it.
There's nothing. It's a
NIL,
free for all.
I'm excited. I'm so glad it's happening, but it makes me uncomfortable.
I agree.
And it only makes me uncomfortable because there aren't rules. Mm-hmm. So that would be my number one.
Well, you know who's kind of setting limits right now? It's the big time programs. It's the Nick Saban saying, "Oh, the first question when I sat down with you in an interview was how much? Get the fuck out. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you're a 5-star. Fuck off."
Yeah, but
and you've heard stories now about Ryan Day doing that. You've heard stories about Matt Rule doing that. You've heard stories about pretty much everybody but Jimbo Fisher doing that. Yeah. And so I think some of that's going to regulate itself. I really do. And the other thing you're hearing is there's some promises being made that aren't being fulfilled. And that's eventually going to either have to stop or those programs are going to lose credibility altogether.
I think, Matt, you said it. I think it was in our show with Vegas where we were talking NIL and we were talking about a bunch of the concerns about it. And you were like, it's still new. Let's let it play out and see where it goes. I think that's exactly what it. Yes, we have these concerns and we're talking about it right now. But, you know, maybe in about 5 years or so, it will regulate, hopefully, I guess I should say it this way, that it will kind of regulate itself because there's only going to be so much money to go around. I understand that some of these people, Texas A&M, you know, whatever, might have these deep pockets. There's still only so much money that can go around. So let's get some averages here for a handful of years and then kind of see where it levels off and where it goes from there.
For sure. Well, there's a lot of that excitement for this first couple of years of it, you know, the local car dealerships and stuff like that they're going to realize real quick that getting the college kid in here to rep your store and sign some stuff might sell a couple extra cars. Mm-hmm. It ain't bringing you $1 million a year. Yeah. It ain't bringing you a couple $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
And some of those are going to start to dwindle a little bit.
Marketing budgets are what they are. That's all never going to change. It's all these people, like you're saying, who are just excited about it and get out there and doing their thing.
The only thing that I would add to this as far as what do I think is the biggest issue facing college, and I kind of already talked about it, we don't have to get too deep into it, and then I'll just say what the numbers, what the results were, would also be part of the other, and that goes back to there's no real governing body of college football.
Yeah.
I think that's a big issue with college football right now, because if you have a governing body of college football, these other things get placed underneath it.
They just get a lot smaller.
Exactly.
One question real quick, just before we move on. I noticed conference realignment wasn't in there at all.
No,
are you guys not
conference
concerned?
realignment was
for us.
Oh,
we didn't talk about it at all.
Well,
are you guys concerned about that?
The funny
at all?
thing is, I'll get to the results. Number one was conference realignment with 27.1%.
Because this was a national question.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because there are that many teams out there that people don't.
Losers out there. I'm just kidding.
Well, we also have 4 of the biggest, name schools in the entire country about to change conferences next year. Yeah. UCLA, USC, Texas, Oklahoma.
Yep.
And they're going to the 2 big conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. Because it's a national question, that's why that came up. Again, us being on the Big Ten side of things,
We don't care. We're already
it
in.
shields us. We're good. We're in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Plain and simple, I think there are, if you're a fan of like Notre Dame's a perfect example of, you're probably not very happy about anything that's going on in college football right now. Because you've lost the luster of, well, we have national TV package and all this different stuff.
Yeah, so does everybody else.
That stuff
You
doesn't
can
matter
watch literally
anymore.
any game.
You
Yeah.
have no more advantage
Nope.
of being the lone outsider not wanting to join a conference. Like, your advantage is gone.
Gone
And
are
as
the
soon-
days of sitting next to a radio listening to a Husker game.
Yeah, and as
Or
as
paying
soon as-
$60 for pay-per-view.
Yeah, and as soon as or 3,500 because you have 65 seats in your bar,
Yep.
things like that. But as soon as you see the two conference thing happen, and it's a mega deal, and those TV deals get restructured and done, and all of a sudden you can't get in the playoff if you're not in one of those conferences. Notre Dame fans, they're all that have all been thumbing their nose in the air. You know, Vegas says the same thing. Well, why do we need to? Why do we need to join a conference? Well, in the next couple of years, they're going to realize that question is now going to be answered.
Because it's no longer going to be a Big 5 conference. It's going to be Big 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or at least 2.5,
And the way our conference schedules are
2.5 doesn't work for very long.
and the way our conference schedules are going to set up, Notre Dame's not going to have the ability to just go out there and play 9 quality opponents that's going to get them.
They don't play 9
enough.
quality opponents now, so
No,
fuck
I
off.
get that, but I'm
not saying fuck off to you.
but
I'm
it's not
talking
gonna
to
get them-
Notre Dame fans. We play the toughest schedule. Fuck you. No, you don't.
They have a couple years, but it's nothing like it used to be.
They play the same schedule everybody else does. They have some cupcakes, they have some good teams, and then they have some middle-of-the-road teams. Everybody has that fucking schedule.
But when it becomes 2 mega
Jed,
conferences,
God, I fucking hate that so
I
much.
don't see you having much of an opinion on this.
You bring up Notre Dame. Yeah, I got an opinion.
Sorry,
you didn't wear your Notre Dame sucks T-shirt.
I know.
So
It's actually way too big for me right now. I need to get another one.
pass it over to Matt.
put it in the wash a few times.
No, what I was trying. I completely lost my point. Actually, it's
Sorry.
gone. No, you're good.
But
the
it's
2 conference schedule.
Oh, when it becomes that, and you have to, like we talked about, if there becomes a governing body, there's eventually going to have to be some crossover games that happen between those 2 conferences. Kind of like what we've talked about.
so you're basically talking an AFC and NFC.
That's exactly what I'm saying. You're gonna have to have some crossover, and so when you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, where does Notre Dame go find its 9 quality opponents to play to even get considered to be a top 12 team to go in the playoff? It's not going to happen. They're going to be forced to join a conference or forced to realize they're never winning a national championship or sniffing the playoffs ever again.
So it's funny you said before I gave up the results of that last question. One thing that we didn't bring up with was conference realignment. Question number 3. How do you feel about Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC and UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten? 1, I hate it. 10, I love it.
I love it.
It's always so funny. You guys are literally, you don't even know these questions, and you basically lead me into each
we're
one of
just
them
answering
so
them for
far.
you.
Well, it's a pretty easy thing right now to talk about.
I know.
I love it. I especially love the fact that right now the SEC fans of like Georgia, Alabama, those schools are hating the fact that Texas already seems to be getting some love.
They're getting the SEC. The state of Texas is getting the SEC media days next year already.
Yeah, and did you see the SEC commissioner ruled that there will now be penalties in SEC games for horns down signals?
Really?
Yep.
I didn't see. Fuck. Oh, Jesus.
They said that the
You gotta
only
love immediately having rules for your school when you enter a conference.
Again, you want to get me to have strong opinions? You bring up Notre Dame. Bring up special treatment for Texas. Here we go.
But it's already happening. It's already happening. And the funniest part was the thing that I saw today was that the commissioner actually said there will be a difference in penalty between if you're giving a horns down sign to the opposing team or if you're giving the horns down sign to your own teammates.
God, what are they, the Tom Brady of college football teams?
I had to laugh so hard when I was looking at this. I was like,
Hit
what?
them with a softer pillow, guys. Jesus.
Okay, so we don't have video yet. We're in the process of doing that, but
Jed's physically
I
pained
am
right
like
now.
Jed's red.
I'm rubbing my forehead just in complete confusion of Oh my God.
So while you work through that, I think it's a 10. I love it for a completely different reason. But it's more the reason that I talked about earlier. It just makes it more like a business. More like what it actually is.
I think it's awesome that we have UCLA and USC joining.
I agree.
Especially with where both of their football programs are going.
Yep.
I mean, USC is pretty much already there, but UCLA looked like the Pat Kelly thing was going to fizzle out.
Chip Kelly, sorry.
There's too many Kellys around. It looked like the Chip Kelly thing was going to fizzle out in year 3 and 4. And guess what? They gave him enough time. Motherfuckers bringing it around. And this year, next year, you're going to see them be a top 10 team moving forward, I think. It's exciting. It's good for the conference, period.
Yeah. No, I think it's good for both conferences. I think it's bad for the other conferences.
Absolutely.
But that's what I mean.
I think it's going to be the worst for Texas.
The more like
they're going to get their dicks pounded the first couple of years in the SEC.
The more like college football becomes.
So is Oklahoma.
NFL, I said Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh, I thought you just said Texas.
The more college football becomes NFL light, the better, in my opinion. At least for the players.
Sure. Oklahoma was in the college football playoff under Lincoln Riley for probably at least 3 of those years, strictly due to the fact that the Big 12 was so weak. And that's no more. And they're going to find out what it is to play big boy football all season and then try and have to go into the playoff.
Especially right now where they're already struggling.
So how do I feel about Texas, them joining these conferences? I actually agree. Number 10, I love it. If not just for the Big 10 and the SEC, but also for the other conferences, because we've already seen it. It's forcing the other conferences to get better.
Yeah.
And whether it's all of the conferences or just the Big 10 adding more teams and trying to add more teams like the Four Corner schools with Texas or Colorado, Utah, Arizona State, or the ACC trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do, and those schools possibly leaving in 10 years whenever their TV deal is up and all those things. It's forcing these maybe number 3 and number 4 conferences like, oh shit, we got to get better because these two teams are already better than us, or these two conferences are already better than us. They're adding 2 teams each that are making that gap even bigger.
Yes.
So it is forcing these other so-called power conferences to get better or just become extinct.
Yeah.
Like the Pac-12 and the ACC might end up being anyway.
What do you mean
so
might?
I love it. Well, the Pac-10, Pac-12 definitely. Yeah. ACC down the road. Yeah. It was kind of funny. So the overwhelming response to this poll question was a 1 that they hate it. Number 1, it says the most popular answer was 1, collectively nearly twice as many votes as any other response at 24%. Number 1 got. So, like, nationally, they hate it. But again, we're on the inside.
A lot of people on the outside.
Everybody who's not part of the Big Ten or the SEC hates these moves because you're seeing at least 3, quasi 4, major powerhouse schools making moves to the big boys.
Well, and kind of like you mentioned, if I'm part of one of those 4 schools that are making the move, I'm either looking at traveling a shit ton to watch my team play for half of the season, or I'm looking at my team getting their dicks pounded by Georgia and Alabama for the next few years.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not excited about it.
No, you're 100% spot on there.
Well, speaking of excitement, how does your enjoyment of consuming college football now compare to 10 years ago? Scale of 1 to 10.
Jesus Christ, how could it not be a 10? Of consuming college football?
That's the question.
Let's just look at the factors that don't include football themselves, like televisions. The fact that, they're everywhere. They're affordable. It's affordable to get all the games. You can see it. You can see.
We just talked about how they're all actually available now to
they're all
watch instead of listening to the radio.
nationally.
By the way, the affordability stuff isn't another question later on. But go ahead.
Jesus Christ! Why didn't they just put it all in one fucking question?
Why didn't they just call us?
Hey,
They
just
paid
looking
somebody
at-
for these questions?
You don't even have to be talking to me about anything football related. Just simply talking about how much I enjoy college football now as opposed to 10 years ago. It's night and day.
Okay.
Even with the Huskers sucking ass for the last decade.
I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. Plus, I'm not 17. You got a lot more stuff going on when you're 17.
Yeah.
So just from that aspect,
Now I have a 75-inch in my living room where I can watch 4 screens.
Yeah.
Instead of a 32-inch that I probably had 10 years ago. I don't even fucking know.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear not only your take on 10 years ago, but 20, 30 years ago.
My enjoyment of consuming college, it's definitely gone up because of, like you guys have already saying, the obvious, the availability. Not just on TV and all of the games on TV and everything else, but being able to, I mean, you guys know as well as anybody how much of a stats guy I am. Being able to consume the stats that you can through the internet.
See a lot more stats online
being able to see it all through the internet.
Or through your phone. Yeah. Like whether it's a computer in front of your face
with a notepad watching a game anymore.
Like we go out to the bars on Fridays or Saturday nights during games, and how often am I doing this on the phone?
Or
like
the game's not on and you can put it on your phone.
Yeah, and I put it up on my phone and I prop it up against my drink or
Which
whatever
is a
else.
total game changer, especially during the weddings of the fall.
Yes. Yeah. Or you just don't go to the fucking wedding because they're stupid, but just saying.
Either way, I can't imagine there was much negativity on this question.
So, I mean, I wouldn't say that it was negative, but 45.4% were between a 4 and a 6. So basically that means that their excitement has not changed.
Wow.
So, I mean, it doesn't make it negative. It's just they're still just as excited as they were 10 years ago.
I feel like there were some people who just weren't having a good day when they answered all these questions.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they weren't looking at it in the fact of the actual ability to consume these games has drastically improved, but I don't know.
If you're just looking at the college football game overall, I mean, maybe you're
literally the question is, how does your enjoyment of consuming college football now compared to 10 years ago?
I don't know how it stays the same or goes down.
If you're looking at it from a football perspective, though, that's when you really have to look. 10 years ago was when did the football playoff start? 8 years ago,
something like that.
8 or 9. You have to be thinking back. There was a lot more parity in the top 25 to especially the top 15 10 years ago than there has been over the last decade.
Well, I guess things like bowl games used to mean a bit more. Stuff like that.
I mean, it's been the last 6 or 7 years. You have 4 teams at the beginning of the season, and you're basically only worried about those. We had the excitement of TCU last year, but when's the last time we had a TCU make a run at the national championship? When's the last time we had a school like that, a Cinderella story in college football, make a run like that? It was probably 10 plus years ago.
And actually make the play. I mean, obviously you had Cincinnati make the playoff, but actually make the playoff. Because you could say Central Florida, at least being undefeated, but they weren't in the playoffs.
And they didn't get the superlatives at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You the last one that I can think of that really got a nice shot at it, I would say Michigan State.
Yeah.
Wait, back, I think that was the first year of the college football playoff.
First few years, yeah.
Yeah. So
wasn't Iowa kind of in there too?
Well, Michigan State beat Iowa in the Big Ten title game.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'm saying, if you're going to look at it strictly from a thinking about football and what's changed in
State
football.
got pounded by Alabama.
Yeah, bad. But if you're going to look at that, I mean, Alabama has basically ruined college football over the last decade, just from a dominance perspective.
Clemson's right there, too.
Good on that. Alabama, Clemson, and then Georgia for the last 3 or 4 years.
And hell, you could even say Oklahoma, because Oklahoma was in a lot of playoffs. They just didn't win any of them.
But I don't know
Only
if that's
because
necessarily...
we had a Big 12 team in there.
Just saying.
I don't know if that's necessarily different. Look at all the dynasties that have gone through college football.
No. I'm not saying that there haven't been dynasties. What I'm saying is there was a lot more parity outside of just 4 or 5 teams every year. It was more of if you were in the top 15, you were considered an elite in college football that year. 10 years ago, that's the way that was. That has not been that way for quite some time.
Do you think we'll kind of get back to that now that we're going to a 12-team playoff?
I think that combined with, like I said, the parity that the transfer portal has created and the inability to have some of those teams that have the Alabama hoarding. The reason Georgia's good, the reason we've seen Georgia get good, South Carolina get good, some of those other schools down there get good right now. Those coaches have leaked out from the Nick Saban tree, and he can't hoard all those players anymore.
So you're telling me
it used to be he had a Rolodex of players that he could go to on the bench that were
for real.
Now those guys are all playing on different teams. They're not all on one team anymore.
I remember telling you, I don't remember the exact number, but when the early signing period happened this last December. Alabama signed roughly, and again, I don't know the exact number, roughly 27 players. 26 of them were 4 or 5 star players. One was not, and the only one that wasn't was the number 1 kicker in the country, and they just don't give 4 or 5 stars to kickers.
Yeah.
So it's like just the hoarding of the elite of the elite.
But those guys won't all be there after.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I was going
to answer your question. Moving forward, I think we're getting back more to that. Yes.
I was going to make a joke about a third stringer at Ohio State winning the national title, but
perfect example. Perfect example. Yes.
So you don't think we're going to see that anymore?
I don't think we can. Why does Dwayne Haskins stay at Ohio State as a third string quarterback capable of winning a national title?
Cardell Jones,
my bad.
Same thing, really.
Yeah, but Cardell Jones doesn't stay. I mean, Joe Burrow doesn't stay at Ohio State.
No.
So
not a chance.
He went somewhere else and won a national title in the Heisman Trophy. Like,
and that was before transferring became super, super popular.
Yeah. Your point is exactly right. I think you're going to see a lot more. And I don't think it's even going to be just the best ranked players like you tried to say earlier, Jed. I think it's going to be the best players because your ranking doesn't matter once you transfer and then you still got to earn that spot.
Yeah.
You're just seeing more talent every Saturday.
That's also why I don't think the immense amount of bitching that coaches are doing about tampering, I'm throwing up air quotes, tampering and all the different stuff that goes into the transfer portal things. I think the coaches can bitch all they want about that. That is not like the bitching that coaches are going to do or the control that coaches are going to have over the NIL. I think what's going on with the transfer portal is by design to try and help with some of bringing back some excitement to college football.
I hope so. Going to the affordability that you talked about earlier, do you find it difficult or too expensive to access the games you want to watch? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
And not to the difficulty or the expensive stuff?
I don't find it expensive or difficult.
Okay.
Look, you need a standard cable subscription, and you get access to almost every single team every single week. You need access to ESPN, and you need access to Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then just the regular channels because the Big Ten is going to have a
and then an
night game on
antenna
NBC.
On your TV. Yeah.
And then also a day game on CBS.
Yeah. And now you don't even have to worry about having the Big Ten network. You just have to have FS1.
Yeah. You literally just have to have Fox. That's it.
I mean, yes. Could you say that it's getting too expensive with the, if you want to watch the one random game that Nebraska will probably have on Peacock every year, or if you're a Michigan fan, Michigan will have one game on Peacock every year because they got to drive the subscriptions. Hell, they're doing that with Notre Dame.
$5.
Well, I'm just saying.
And you get a 7-day free trial, man.
Compared to that,
it's free $99.
Compared to that $60 pay-per-view game that you used to pay to watch Nebraska play Buffalo,
or go pay a $10 cover at a sports bar to get in and eat some, and you got to have a table minimum for food and drinks,
or pay the $5 or $10 that it is for your subscription for Peacock or anything else for 3 months and then get rid of it.
Here's the other side of it.
It's still less than the $60 for one game we were talking about.
The only thing that massively sucks dick right now is what all of the third-party ticket purchasers for people that want to go to the games live. Mm-hmm. When I was looking at tickets for the Minnesota game, I was looking at, this is like a month ago, I was looking at tickets for the Minnesota game. I was looking at sitting first row, second row, third row, right behind the players, down there on the sideline, behind the Husker sideline. Going to be fucking awesome. And it was going to be $170, $180 a ticket. I went and looked at those just the other day. There's not nearly as many available, but those tickets are all $700 or $800 now. And that's all just third-party people that have bought those up and they're trying to make cash on that. If there's something that needs to be done I think that's in the whole ticket space in general, but from a college sports standpoint, you want to put a regulation on something, it should be something like that.
Why?
Because it's also impossible.
You're pricing out the average fan. You're making it so a tiny stadium like Minnesota that seats 52,000 people, all of a sudden you got to make $100K a year in order to take your family to the game.
Only if you're not purchasing the tickets when they first come out. Like it punishing people for not purchasing tickets at a certain time doesn't necessarily seem like a problem to me.
Okay.
I'm asking if that's
It's not really something
the
that college
only
football
reason.
can fix. That's
a problem everywhere. That's the same reason why a buddy of ours
That's
got
a capitalist
$5
problem. That's
grand
not-
a ticket for Taylor Swift.
True.
Like, if people are willing to pay those prices,
Get on you, Brad.
if people are willing to pay those prices, I think they should be able to get that money.
I paid just under $500 for face value for the Colorado tickets.
Well, that's a little different.
That's a different fucking
Colorado
asinine
trying
thing.
to
I'm just
afford
saying.
paying their coach.
But speaking of the
They
Minnesota
announced
game,
a sellout today, though. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Nebraska and Stanford.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Because the Stanford game is the family game or whatever.
Might also be the only game that they fucking win all season.
But speaking of the Minnesota tickets, I got 2 tickets from me and Ryan. Basically the same seats that you guys had when you guys were down up there with Missy a handful of years
Great
ago.
place to sit.
Those exact tickets, first row right there, and they're like I think they were $210 a piece,
How long ago did you buy them, though?
maybe a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah,
There's still a lot of stuff available right now, but it is expensive as hell.
yeah, it's not
Well,
cheap,
that's-
but
a lot of those third-party sites, it isn't even actually like a company going and buying a bunch of tickets. It's people who went and bought tickets.
Oh, I know.
And they're
I know.
selling them themselves. It's not really any different than
we
a
saw that
scalper
with the
being outside
Colorado-
the stadium and being like, "Give me $200. You can
I
have
saw
these
that with
tickets."
the Colorado tickets before they actually went on sale on the Colorado website. There was tickets all over those third-party sites. Those are all just season ticket holders selling their ticket
Yeah.
that they know that they're already going to get because they got the season tickets. That's basically what all these tickets are before they're actually going on sale. That it's the season ticket holders basically wanting to get all their money back from the one game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you looking for the Minnesota tickets, well,
Didn't pull the trigger a month ago. That's the unfortunate part.
but also what Minnesota people would say is don't root for a team that people care about.
True.
Because
Because they're used to rooting for a team that people don't care about.
exactly. But if you
Man, I care about them cheese curds though. I'll be honest.
I don't know
I'll be
what
hanging out in jet
If
seats.
I wasn't a fan,
I don't know what Minnesota's schedule is, but let's just say Northwestern's going up to Minnesota.
especially this year.
Yeah.
All I
But-
can say is sitting in those seats, man, just remember, if you scream some shit at one of those players in that corner, they will turn around and look right at you because they heard your
They
ass.
definitely turned around and did that to him when we were there. That was
Lamar Jackson
fucking
heard you?
hilarious.
Get your ass back to the sideline, pussy. He turned right around and looked
thought he was
dead
gonna
in my
come-
face.
I thought he was going to come in the stands, and I was too drunk. I was like, this is going to be fun.
Oh, there was nobody who was coming in the stands. We looked like 2 woolly mammoths standing there.
Especially standing next to Missy.
We both had giant beards and we were wearing like 3 coats. It was 5 degrees that day.
So going back to the question, do you find it difficult or too expensive to access the games? I say no, absolutely not.
I agree.
Especially with how expensive everything else in life is right now.
Yeah,
it's
I
cheaper.
agree. It's no.
So the national responses was 78.2% was no. So everybody's like,
That's in
we
line.
don't care.
That
Let's just-
that tells me that 22% of all these people answering this
Just
poll were
grumpy.
having a really
Yeah,
bad
they're
day.
just grumpy.
no, they agreed with us. No, it's not too expensive.
Yeah,
That's
that's saying 22%.
Oh, I'm
we're
sorry.
having a really
Sorry.
bad day.
22% don't have TV.
Yeah. Next question: should players get a share of conference television revenue?
No.
Why do you say no?
Because the athletic department sets it all up. They're choosing to participate in that. They're getting name, image, and likeness for everything else. There's going to be a college football game coming out that they're going to start getting paid on. There's other things that they get paid on for stuff like that. The entity itself is getting the TV revenue. The players, they get paid by a team in the NFL. They don't get a share of the TV revenue. That would be ridiculous for college players to start getting a share of the TV revenue.
Okay, that's fair. I see your point. My argument to that would be, aren't they just getting that TV revenue through transitive property? But I get what you're saying.
Can't use transitive property when you got contracts involved.
I got you.
I say absolutely not because, and it will go to the next question as well. I'll just say the next question. Would you like to see players become employees of the universities? And for me, I'll just lead this off. The answer is no, again, because, yes, this question is basically a college football related. This survey is basically college football related. And yes, college football makes all the money for every university. But because of Title IX, you got to spread that money around. If you're talking university money, athletic department money, as much money as these conferences and universities get, They don't get enough money to pay every single athlete.
Yeah.
And it all has to be equal. I don't care what you say. Yes, $85 million a year or whatever the Big Ten's going to be getting per team. When you pay for everything, whether it's travel and boarding and school and everything else, food and everything else, there is not enough money to go around to the swimming team and the tennis team and the rifle team and all this stuff. Not enough to make it significant, I guess I should say. Is there enough money to go around? Yes. Is it significant enough to mean a goddamn thing? No.
No. And the other thing to follow up on that is a lot of people are getting things confused between what name, image, and likeness is doing for people. Name, image, and likeness is not about fairness. It's not about anything other than you have the equal opportunity to sell your name, image, and likeness. Whether or not someone wants to buy that is completely up to them. They don't owe. You're not owed anything equal to someone else. That is exactly why things need to stay as they are, and you can get paid outside. But you bring in the school paying any of them past a certain basically, the way that I look at it, schools should be allowed to give these students stipends as if they're travelers, as if they're relocated to go play there, do their schooling there, things like that. They could be giving them tax-free money, but you've got to follow certain restrictions on that. You got to follow. There's all kinds of other regulation that goes into those things. I think you should be doing more of that, like a living per diem type, and turn that all into money that's coming over to them with the intention of them covering outside meals that they're not in the cafeteria for, covering some housing stuff. But as far as paying them, fuck off. No.
And one of the big things that people like to bring up when talking about would you like to see players become employees of the universities, that one of the biggest things people bring up is if they become employees, then that brings in health benefits. And I understand where people are coming from with that the long-term health benefits that some of these athletes need, and they're right. But again, that just adds more money that the universities need to pay out, which means less money going back to the athletes themselves. So again, just the whole thing, no, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that's going too far with it. I think that's dumb. Like I said, you have independent contracts in the NFL for a reason. You're not shelling out. It's not based on what the team's making in a TV deal.
Yeah. Matt, you got anything on those?
I was trying to figure out just the number of collegiate athletes that are out there.
There's a lot
right now. I can't actually get a good number on that.
Yeah.
But just in the Big Ten, there's over 500,000 students. So if you're just looking at 10% of that, there's no way you could pay all of them.
No.
Unless you're going to pay them.
I once calculated out how many scholarships Nebraska gives out with all the sports. And I believe that it was like 150, 180.
That's just scholarships.
Close to 200. Just scholarship players.
That's not all the people on the team.
Exactly.
So,
and you're talking that many people to give out, again, the equal amount of money, unless you do it based on a percentage, which you can't because of Title IX. It all has to be equal.
Yeah.
There's just not that kind of money to go around.
How do you judge performance of a volleyball player versus somebody on the bowling team?
Here, wait, to answer this question, the TV revenue thing, he said there's roughly 500,000
students.
Students, not student athletes.
So I said take 10% of that. That's probably what the athletes are.
Okay.
So add a zero to that.
Yeah. So if you're looking at it, they'd be able to pay, if they split the $6 billion deal we just made, let's say it's 10% on those student athletes, they'd be able to give them all 12 grand.
Exactly.
And that's a how long deal?
Yeah. I mean,
that's dumb as fuck. Get out of here. That's a stupid question.
Why did you
even put that in the article? That's dumb.
Well, somebody didn't do math.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
So the first question was, should players get a share of television revenue? 61% said yes.
61% of them didn't do the math.
Well, they all thought of it like you were saying transitive property with all that bullshit.
Well, the follow-up question is, would you like to see players become employees of the university? 65% of them said no. So 61% want them to get a share of the revenue, the television revenue, but 65% do not want them to be employees.
This is where a lot of people don't understand NIL and what it actually means.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion on that. I'm going to leave it alone because I'm not trying to insult anybody. But that's they don't understand how that business is working right now.
I'm not even sure I understand it, but just doing general math makes me feel like it's not possible.
Yeah.
No.
It's too many people just look at that $6 billion that you were talking about number and say, there's enough money to go around. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're dividing it by 16, soon to be 16 in the Big Ten. Well, but then you have to divide it by how many athletes. Yeah, and again, you're not just talking football players. You're talking all of the athletes of 16 teams. There's the money that goes around it's just not worth it.
$1 billion gets really small when you're looking at those
exactly.
numbers.
But it's the same people that are, not to bring any politics or anything like that into this. I'm not bringing the politics into it. It's the same type of people, though, that are crying, oh, we made a calculation error and sent an extra $6 billion to Ukraine in the support for the war. Why didn't we just give a disbursement to the United States? Cool. Everybody needs $15. Like what?
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
People have been doing stuff like that forever.
But it's just exactly what you said, though. They hear $6 billion. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about because it just sounds like an astronomical number of zeros.
All they want to say is, I got a share of $6 billion. That's all they want to say. They're not going to tell you that they got $5.
It's like your class action lawsuit that won $500 million. Sweet, I got a check. I have a check upstairs right now from Experian that
for $4.96.
$5.37. It's sitting on my fridge, and I think it expired because it was like a 90-day check.
Cashed it out and changed my life. Best Big Mac I ever had.
Yeah, I got a $500 million settlement from Experian.
I got a chunk of that.
Yeah, you should see the chunk.
All right, next question. What is the ideal size of the college football playoff? 8, 12, more than 12, 4, or 2?
I think 12 is great. 16 would be amazing.
Okay.
Just because I'm a glutton, 64 teams sounds like good. I want to see March Madness in December, man. But honestly, I feel like 12 is going to... I want to see how 12 works for a few years.
I agree
to actually
with that.
have a good...
Yeah.
Do you know how amazing it would be, though, to watch
64 teams?
If they worked the schedule so that you had 64 teams, but there were games every day. Every single day of the week.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know about
that way. You could get it done.
I don't even know about that.
That's called November.
I'm just saying, like, that'd be
just
fucking
go
fun as hell.
Thursday through Sunday.
I'm talking games that matter.
No, I know.
Like, that'd be fun as fuck.
Hey, those MAC games matter.
No, but think about it. Like,
sure they do.
Think about watching.
They do to me.
Think about watching a number 2 seed
Buffalo,
Oklahoma.
Western Michigan's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Think about watching a number 2 seed Oklahoma get knocked out at the beginning of the month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be fucking cool to see. Like some of those upsets that you see in college basketball, that it's like that's a like historic, awesome, like humongous upset.
Now,
but there's so many games so fast, and those teams move on and play so quickly.
Yeah.
In college football, it'd be more like you got to give them a week off. Like, those fans are going to sit with that for a little while. That's cool.
You're looking at what, 6 rounds? So you need 6 weeks. That's it. You go December 1st, and you're still finishing at the same time in the middle of January.
Hey,
64 teams.
all you're saying is more football, and that means I'm in.
Now,
the problem
downside.
is society adding more football games. That ain't gonna work.
A bigger downside.
That's the problem.
Nebraska probably wouldn't have made the 64 team cut the last couple of years.
No, they would not have.
No,
That would have been a big problem for me.
Especially since like 68 teams make a bowl game and we haven't.
there's 80 some teams that made a bowl game last year. There's 42 bowl games.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
and we still haven't.
We weren't in the top 80.
I'm just saying.
No. I want a whole month of football, and Nebraska's not even involved.
It's a month and a
Didn't
half.
even get one fucking game.
It's a month and a half, but we're going to need to get just a little better, Matt Rule, before we can introduce the 64-team playoff.
I like the potential of this 12-team playoff.
I do too.
I think it's going to be fantastic.
I think 16 would be cool because I'm not the biggest fan of the buys. I understand earning buys, and I get that part.
I honestly,
that's why I would say 16.
Yeah,
but there has to be something for being the top team.
I completely agree with you. That's
Something
why
is you're playing the 16th team.
Yeah, but you're playing the 16th team.
Or you can just take a week off.
Alabama
and be
could have
set
a couple
for the next
bad
game.
games and be the 16th team.
Hey, we just got done talking about why we need better parity in college football. And how they're working towards that. You don't get better parity by giving Alabama and Georgia the first week off of a fucking playoff for those two guys to scheme for the next team.
My thing with the positives for the bye weeks for the top 4 teams is that it makes the regular season important. that you have to be good enough to be a top 4 team.
That is the incentive, yes.
So it incentivizes the regular season more. So
that might be another thing that incentivizes better scheduling too.
But at the same
still
time,
only talking about 16 teams.
Yeah, no,
Out of how many are FBS?
133.
133.
Yeah. And there's 68-ish.
So even if you're looking at 16, the top 16 are still
the percentage
real good.
is still like, what, 10% or
Yeah.
what? No, it's not even 10%. It's like 8.
So there's got to be something a little more than, you get the 16th best team who could easily have been number 1 if the ball had bounced the right direction a couple of weeks ago.
So of the respondents, 37. Wow, this was close. 37.6% had 8 teams. 37.5% had 12 teams. So and it was not close between that and the third situation. So
how many had more?
More than 12 was the third option, and that was 13.3%.
Yeah, makes sense.
So basically, it's 8 or more from everybody. Next question as I scroll down here. And actually, I want to pull up the whole list on my phone. Give me just a second here. Which first-year Power 5... This is going to... Actually, we can talk about Nebraska here. Which first-year Power 5 coach is most likely to succeed at his new school? The options are Arizona State's coach. I'm not even going to say most of these guys' names because you don't know who these people are. Arizona State, Auburn, Hugh Freeze is at Auburn, Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati, Deion Sanders, Brent Key at Georgia Tech, Jeff Brom at Louisville, Zach Arnett at Mississippi State, Rule at Nebraska, Ryan Walters at Purdue, Troy Taylor at Stanford, Luke Fickell at Wisconsin.
Does this specify for this season or just in general?
Which first-year Power 5's coach is most likely to succeed at his new school? It does not specify.
There's 3 that I like on that list. For me personally, I like Jeff Brom at Louisville a lot. I think the cupboards are pretty well stocked for him to come in and actually have a pretty good year his first year there.
Especially, have you seen their schedule this year?
Yeah,
it sets up really nice.
And he's a great coach. We've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. And now he's home. So I think that's a great mix. I don't think he will enjoy as much success there as a successful Matt Rule or a successful Luke Fickell. I think both of those guys have the potential because of where they are, strictly because of where they are, and their background is just being a little bit more of an aggressive, good coach. I would have to put Fickell probably 1A, Matt Rule 1B, and then a close second would be down there in Louisville.
Brom.
Yeah.
Basically the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
So before I answer, it's funny. Luke Fickell was number 1 on as far as the results on this. 49.1% of the people said Luke Fickell.
Well, dude, here's the thing. He's a great fucking coach. He should have gotten the Ohio State job. He should have got the Ohio State job back when it was almost his. He went to Cincinnati and turned that program into
took him to a playoff,
a legitimate team. This was not just
took a group of 5 team to a playoff,
and it was not a bullshit season. Like he played some good games.
Yep.
Like he's a great coach, and he went to a very underperforming for the last couple of years team in Wisconsin, where all their players said, fuck this, I'm out. You guys are
underperforming, but still good.
You guys aren't going to keep what's his name, the defensive coordinator,
Jim Leonard.
You're not going to keep Jim Leonard. I'm gone.
Yeah,
and he went in there and they put it on social media. This wasn't like conjecture that you heard through the media. This was actual words that they put out in public, and none of those dudes left. They were all excited to stay and play for Fickell, and he's added some great stuff. I think he's going to be hard to beat in Wisconsin for a while. And he walked into a little bit better situation, a little more full covered than what Matt Rule has in Nebraska.
Piggybacking off that, yes, I do believe that Luke Fickell went into a better situation that really most of these coaches are going into. I still am not necessarily buying into Wisconsin, at least for year 1. Down the road, yes, I agree. Luke Fickell will build that program into what they want to be.
I'm not saying they're going to be a national juggernaut this year, but for them to win the Big Ten West, that's who I'm picking.
Oh, no. But the overhaul that they did in that program, I think is going to be tough for them in year one because of the adaptation that those players, even them buying into the change, the adaptive nature that they have to have, specifically offensively, the complete overhaul on offense that they're doing. You don't see that being successful right away.
Sure.
Doesn't mean that it can't be successful down the road. It also doesn't mean that it can't be successful this year. That could work.
I mean, it could just click with the players, but it's not likely. Going
into it, looking at it, I'm skeptical, at least for year one. So number 2 on the results was Matt Rule at 16.2%. So like I said, the drastic difference in the numbers
between Fickell and Rule there.
Yeah.
Well, there was going to be when there's 40% of
exactly
one person.
True. I honestly, and I'm not drinking Kool-Aid here, but I think most likely to succeed because I still think that there are question marks with Luke Fickell in the overhaul. Because also, if the overhaul doesn't work in year one, it could also implode in his face. I don't think that it will because I think he's too good of a coach.
If he scrambles.
Exactly.
If he just keeps pounding the drum and just keeps going with it.
Or at least if it explodes this year, in his face this year, it'll be a longer runway for him to take off.
But if he gives into pressure and he starts moving some pieces around to try and make it fit, that's when things are going to go wrong.
I honest to God would put Matt Rule at number 1 on this, most likely. But I think another guy that is in the mix in this is Hugh Freeze at Auburn because he has already proven that he can succeed in the SEC when he was at Ole Miss.
True.
And he did it while skirting the rules that are now legal.
Fair point.
So, I mean,
when's Jim Tressel coming back?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get that motherfucker some tattoos.
Now, granted, it's going to be hard for him at Auburn with Nick Saban still there, but once Nick Saban leaves, if Hugh Freeze is still there, then, again, Hugh Freeze has already proven that
Liberty, wasn't he?
He was at Liberty, yeah.
Yeah, and he was fucking killing it at Liberty.
Yeah. So,
nobody even knew Liberty had a football team.
He's a good fucking coach. And him going back to the SEC where, again, he was already successful.
Yeah.
I think he is right there with a Fickell and a Rule to be successful as far as these guys go.
What do you think about Brom?
I agree. I think Brom could do some good things. Now, granted, the ACC schedule this year is good for next year for Louisville is
bad,
really tough.
My big thing about him is I think
he better get off to a good start and get going.
Yeah, I think he has a ceiling. As a head coach, I think he has a ceiling, and that's part of why he has had opportunities to go take bigger jobs, and he's turned it down. I think he knows where he wants to be. They're going to be perfectly happy with him winning 7, 8, 9 games a year.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Inverse of the last question, which first-year Power 5 head coach is least likely to succeed at his new school?
Whoever ends up in Northwestern.
Well, they're not on the list right now. So you've got schools like Colorado, Georgia Tech, Stanford, Mississippi State, obviously Auburn, Cincinnati, Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Who took over at Mississippi State?
Purdue.
Again?
At Mississippi State, Zach Arnett.
Where's he from?
I'm pretty sure he was one of the coordinators that just has taken over since Mike Leach's unfortunate passing.
I think that's going to be a really, really, really difficult hole to fill. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a tough one. I'm going to be dead honest. This is not me being a Deion hater or a Colorado hater. I think Deion would be high on my list for this one, just simply because of the fact that I don't think he's going to stay there long enough to do anything. One of two things is going to happen.
Or with what's going on right now, he might not be healthy enough to stay there.
Well, there's that too. I haven't heard more about it in the last couple of weeks.
He's not going to Pac-12 media days because he's having another surgery to straighten out his toes so it's not painful to have shoes on.
Jesus Christ.
Like the 3 toes that he has left on that foot. He's having surgery to straighten them out.
He's dealing with a lot of blood clot stuff, and like I said, I might not like the guy, but I would never wish anything like that on him. I hope he can get that stuff figured out. Because
absolutely.
I want him to fail because of his coaching and because of his fucking being an asshole.
I want him to fail for other reasons.
By the way, the Mississippi State coach, Zach Arnett, he was the defensive coordinator the last couple of years. So I I knew he was one of the assistants, but I just didn't know if it was an offensive or defensive coach.
Oh, gotcha.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'd probably put Dion number 1 there just because I don't think it's going to work at Colorado.
And
not
this year specifically.
not necessarily because of him. Yeah, if we're looking at this year specifically, definitely not.
Yeah.
But if we're looking even long term, I just think it's Colorado with the way that conference realignment's going, with the way NIL and all that stuff once the conferences are realigned. That football program, that athletic department's not going to be able to afford everything that he wants to do with it to move forward. And I think it's one of two things is going to happen.
Him.
Either he's going to fail faster than what people expected, and the stadium is going to be half empty like it's always been, and that's going to piss him off and he's going to want to leave, or the athletic department's not going to be able to support the things that he wants to do, and that's going to piss him off and he's going to want to leave. I just don't see it. Yeah. It's not a long-term marriage in my mind.
I agree.
So when I guess when I look at it from a failure perspective,
now it's a marriage of convenience.
It's a necessity.
That too.
He had to get into the game. He had to get into the Power 5 game, and he's going to spend 1 or 2 years at Colorado. In my opinion, I think he spends 1 or 2 years there, and he's going to leapfrog a couple different levels of schools here.
I don't know.
Until he can get himself into a Big Ten or SEC school, probably a Florida State situation.
Yep. I don't know if he can jump until he proves himself somewhat.
At least until he gets his toe fixed.
So, fuck off.
Are you saying he needs to dip his toes in the water?
Okay.
Let's dip his toe in the water first.
The Power 5 water?
The point is, God, I can't even think about what I was going to say now. If he shits the bed 2 or 3 years in a row, he's not jumping to another Power 5 school.
Yeah.
He's barely on the ledge now with Colorado.
But you got to realize what he's doing right now. It's kind of like one of those things where
I think this is all or nothing for him over the next 3 years.
I agree.
I agree, but I don't think it's going to be 3 years. He's impressed enough people around college football right now that there are schools that would take him right now that wouldn't have taken him before he went to Colorado.
Yeah?
I'm talking about right now, before he plays any games.
If he goes 0 for this year, do you think that remains?
I think the longer he's at Colorado, the less attractive he will get.
Yes.
Unless they're
That's
good.
why he's not going to be there. They're not going to be good. They can't be good. They simply won't be good.
No.
You can bring in all the supreme athletes at skill positions that you want to. If you have fucking me and you in the trenches by ourselves with my fucking 35-year-old ass, it ain't going to fucking work. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have the stuff over there. They're not going to win more than 4 games this year. And
The total's at 3.5.
Yeah,
How do you see him leapfrogging, though, if you can't win any games?
I'm saying what people are impressed by what he's doing from a recruitment perspective and what he's done as far as bringing, like, the coaches that he was able to bring in there is huge. And if you actually give him a real athletic department with a real budget and real facilities, he's going to be able to put even better stuff in there. And those are the shiny things that he's able to, lipstick on a pig, which is Colorado's the pig. He's put as much fucking Louis Vuitton lipstick on that as he possibly can. And that's what's made him attractive. That's why I'm saying there are teams that wouldn't have hired him when he got hired at Colorado that now, preseason, would hire him because of the way he built his staff and the way that he was unafraid to come in and turn over that roster.
So you think that regardless of what actually happens football-wise, he's better off because of what's going on, and he will leave in the next couple of years?
Yes.
Well, then I definitely have to say that he's going to fail at Colorado.
Yeah.
Especially if he's planning to move that quickly.
My pick would be more of... So Dion's kind of the obvious one, but for me it's more of circumstantial than actual, like, production on the field.
Yeah, go look at West Virginia, look at some of those other schools that are out there that nobody cares about.
So, like, of the question, like, I would rather pick, like, Troy Taylor at Stanford being the new head. Like, I don't think Stanford,
another school that's talking about getting rid of their football program.
That's why I would. when I'm going through this survey, I'm picking a guy like Troy Taylor from Stanford.
Sure. It's logical. It's just not fun to
picking
talk
a
about.
Zach Arnett from Mississippi State because he plays in the SEC and he's going to get his dick pounded in over and over again.
That just happened.
And stuff like that. So, or Brent Key at Georgia Tech. Like, Georgia Tech's not going to be good anytime soon.
Yeah.
So I'm probably, if I'm doing this survey, I'm picking one of those three.
Yeah.
But yes, Deion is kind of... He's a lightning rod. He ended up at number one at 20.7% of the votes. It was kind of funny. So it said Matt Rule was way towards the bottom at 8.7%, but they had Fickle and Brom were separated by just 3 votes, 1.9% for each of them for the lowest vote getters. So people are, as far as least likely to succeed. Obviously, Fickle's going to be towards the bottom because he was at the top of the last one.
Yep.
But Brom wasn't towards the top of the last one. He was.
Yeah, but we know what he
bottom.
is, and we also know what succeeding is at Louisville is the same as succeeding at Purdue.
Yep.
And he's been by all
he
accounts,
succeeded at Purdue.
He has succeeded.
Yep.
Leaps and bounds at Purdue. So yes, and the other thing is at Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin's not like trying hard to get. National. Their goal every year isn't national championships. That's not what their fan base is feasting for. What you're looking at is, if you're successful at Wisconsin, you're Bo Pelini at Nebraska. I mean, in all reality, Bielema was wildly successful at Wisconsin. I don't think even getting back to that. If you get back to that, you're blowing the doors off the place.
Well, yeah, if you go to it was 4 straight Big Ten title games, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
That's pretty okay.
I don't care which side of the
It's going to be a little
Big Ten you're on,
different
but
with how the conference will be set up, but still.
So since we're talking about Deion, again, another question that goes right into all the other ones.
We're so good at this.
And I think we kind of already know where this is going, so we can quickly go through this and go to the last question. Are you rooting for Deion Sanders to succeed or fail at Colorado?
I think BJ just said it perfectly earlier. I want him to fail, but not because of his foot.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Mostly I just want him to fail because
he's at Colorado. Fuck Colorado.
Well, he's at Colorado, and like I said, there's still a part of me that loves the old way of college football, and he's bastardized that. Mm-hmm. That's gone in his image. Like in his realm, that's fucking gone. Mm-hmm. There's nothing out there. It's all about how do I win as a coach, and that's. I mean, for me,
that is one thing I don't. Go ahead.
One thing that I'll finish up, and I'll just say this: I don't know that he's that way with his guys. I know that the guys that have played for him at Jackson State fucking love him. They'll go to war for him. That's awesome. But at the same time, the persona that he puts off and the way that he's doing things, fucking great for an NFL player. I just don't like it in college football.
Well, for instance, and I sent you this picture last week. This is on one of the walls in Colorado. You look good, you feel good. You feel good, you play good. You play good, they pay good.
Yeah.
Again, like what you said, he's getting rid of everything that even has a semblance of old school college football.
Well, and I know that I've kind of been banging the business drum on this podcast, but I don't like to see a coach who is so about himself that he shows up wearing the colors and there's not even a logo of the school on his jacket.
At the spring game.
Well, there actually was a logo. He had his little vest
on the inside.
It was on the inside.
It's on the inside, tucked under all the Prime shit.
Exactly. The problem is the logo should be more prominent than the Prime stuff.
Is it Prime University?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but the coach is not why people are watching the games.
Yep.
But it is right now.
It is for Colorado.
It is right now.
Yeah, but that's my point.
I agree with you. I agree
It
with
shouldn't
you.
be.
Yeah. No.
Even if everything that I've been saying, it should be like a business, this and the other. It's because I want the best for the players.
Mm-hmm.
To answer the question
the coaches
directly,
are all getting theirs.
do I want him to fail? I want everything that looks like that to fail.
Okay.
Agreed.
I will go old school college football, college Nebraska football, Big 8, Big 12, whatever. I want him to fail because he's coaching at Colorado.
Fuck Colorado.
Period.
Yeah. That's as good a reason as
His
any.
name could be Bob Smith, and this question would be for that. And I'd say, yes, I want him to fail because it's Colorado.
Colorado.
Sure. Kiss my ass. I don't care that you're no longer a conference rival of ours. No. Piss off. Same thing with Texas. You can lose every game, too. I don't give a shit.
Well, they might.
I hope so.
They might.
Last question, and we can get done with this. Who is your pick to win the national title in the 2023 season? I think it's pretty easy, but
It's hard not to say Georgia.
yeah.
I think Alabama's going to give them a good run for their money this year. I think that's probably going to be your national title game. But I think Georgia's going to have a real quarterback playing quarterback this year. That's the only thing that they've been missing for the last 2 years.
As opposed to a grandpa.
Well, they might have we don't know yet, but
I mean, they've got 2 or 3 really, really good guys
talent-wise,
to choose from.
yes. But
The odds definitely say Georgia.
Yeah.
I don't see anything slowing that fucking freight train of a
Absolutely.
program down right now.
The only thing that would the only other team that I see out there that potentially, but you'd have to see them actually play like competition is USC.
I just don't know. Their defense has to get a lot better for them to have a shot.
But if they score 60 points a game,
And there's always that opportunity for,
But they don't.
I think they probably will this year.
Even Nick Saban's best teams have had off days. Like, we could see some weird shit,
Absolutely.
as we always
Absolutely.
do. Any given Sunday on a Saturday, you do your thing. But Georgia's got the best shot.
Yeah. I think outside of Georgia, Alabama, for obvious reasons, and I know I picked them last year and they kind of choked the bed a little bit, but
They were underwhelming last
I've
year,
heard
for
some
sure.
slight rumblings about Clemson being really good again this year too.
if Cade Klubnik can be the quarterback that they expect, maybe. But I still think that with the skill position guys that Ohio State has, if they can have a quarterback come in and their quarterback be the guy that they expect as well, kind of like Georgia with having a couple of really good quarterbacks. If they, Georgia doesn't have to have a good quarterback. They've already proven that 2 years in a row. But the skill position is guys that Ohio State has, obviously with the best wide receiver in the country with Marvin Harrison Jr.
What's Michigan look like this year? Do they
was
get
waiting
better
for
or
him
do
to
they
finish.
get worse?
No,
I was waiting for him to
they're going to be
finish,
good,
yeah.
but I just don't know that I trust J.J. McCarthy.
Fair.
I mean,
I don't know that you have to as much though with as much returning talent as Michigan has.
They didn't lose that many players.
No, they
and
didn't,
how
but-
good they were. That's my thing about Ohio State. I think those two teams. That's whoever comes out of the Big Ten. Cool. I think they've got a great shot at it.
Yeah.
But I really think.
But like Matt said, the freight train that is Georgia right now, it's
They're just goddamn.
I wish we could have seen Georgia Michigan last year instead of the fucking TCU game.
I think the score would have been very close to the same.
You think it's the
Georgia
same?
would have piss pounded Michigan.
Wow. Okay.
Georgia's
yeah, that's fair.
so
that's-
fucking good right now.
I just
I just think Michigan's defense is so much better than what TCU's was.
but are
and
they?
I
Because
see-
what'd they do against TCU?
True.
I see
mean-
Michigan taking a step forward this year. I've always kind of felt like Harbaugh just needed to pass that Ohio State hurdle, and things were going to click into place for him a bit. And so I'm kind of interested to see if that's the case or if he continues to be.
He's passed that Ohio State hurdle the last 2 years, and he's gotten beat in the first round both years. So I don't know. I mean, but I do like. I mean, as much as I hate to say I like anything about Michigan, because I don't know if you've ever heard this on this podcast before. Fuck Michigan. But
We had an entire episode where you just said that last year.
Blake Corum is fun to watch as a running back.
Yeah.
He is. He might run for 1,600 yards this year
Yeah. But
if he stays healthy.
I think if Ohio State can play to their potential, they would still. Yes, Michigan scoreboard wise beat the shit out of Ohio State, but it was like off of 5-6 plays.
Yeah.
Outside of those 5 or 6 plays, and I know that those count. I'm not trying to say you take those plays away. I don't like that argument, but they dominated them for 5 or 6 plays, and outside of that, it was a close game.
I think if Ohio State gets beat by Michigan again this year,
Ryan Day's on the hot
Ryan
seat.
Day might be gone.
I don't know about gone, but he's at least that fire turns up very high. Yeah.
If you're Wisconsin, you're hoping Ryan Day gets fired after this year because if it's 2 or 3 or 4
anyone in the
years,
Big Ten, I mean,
no. I'm saying if it's 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, you're worried about Luke Fickell leaving
oh yeah,
to take that job because I think he'll be the first candidate that they call.
So overall, with this whole survey, I think we're all kind of in agreement that these next 42, 41, whenever you're listening to this, days cannot come fast enough.
Fuck yeah.
Because Jesus Christ, it needs to get here soon.
Oh my God. I'm so excited.
And you can't hide it.
So
Get out.
fucking
Follow our Facebook page. Get into Big Red Junkies Nation, the group. We do a lot of fun stuff in there. It's for adults. Don't be sending your kids in. There's some fun stuff.
or do you parent like you want to.
Hey, you do you. You do you, mom and dad. You
But
do
there's
you.
a lot of fuck in there.
Yeah,
So
you do you.
just
Get out,
fucking
follow-
realize.
Follow us on Twitter. Jed, Giant Head Jed on Twitter. BJ, Big Red Junkies on Twitter. Big Red Junkies on Twitter.
Yep.
I'm still trying to figure out what Twitter is. So
Matt
ain't
is
got no
27
handles.
years old and doesn't know what Twitter is.
Man.
It's a bluebird, man. Got to get on there. Get it done. Get out there, follow us. Get ready for the Minnesota game.
Yeah.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.